Okay, so the 2004 GMC Envoy is back. And in the last video I put a blower control module in here because the blower wasn't working. So the blower blows now, but as I found at the end of the last video, all the air blows out of the defrost vents, none of it comes out of the front. And if I hit the mode button here, see if it'll do it now. There it goes. Hear that clicking? That's one of the actuators. That clicking noise is a surefire sign that an actuator has gone bad in the HVAC system. Now in this case it's the mode actuator, which is the one that controls where the air flows to. Now if you've got air coming out of one location, or it's not switching the modes properly, and there's no clicking or any noises coming from behind the dash, you might just need to recalibrate the HVAC system. There's a couple different ways to get the HVAC system to recalibrate on these vehicles. This one's the quickest and the easiest. First, you need to get to the fuse box. If you're not familiar with the GMT 360 series, it's here under the back seats. Right here. Let's see if I can do this all with one hand. Pull all these covers off. Again, doing this with one hand. Nope, I need two hands for this. Okay, back to one hand again. So we're going to pull that off, and these are all your interior fuses, including the HVAC fuses, which is what we want to get to. Now you take your cover that you pulled off, and it's got the diagram on there for your fuses. Now what you're looking for is fuse number 36. That's Hvac B Fuse. So if we come to there, this is actually upside down, but it's should be, yep, it's this fuse right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fuse puller and just pull that fuse right out. And we're just going to leave that fuse out for about 10 seconds and then put it back in. Now, I feel this is a good time to mention this isn't going to fix the problem with this car. If you've got clicking coming from your actuators and it's not selecting properly, then you're going to need a new actuator most likely. This is just going to help if, for example, you had some work done and all of a sudden it's not working. Now anytime you disconnect power from the HVAC system, for example if you change a battery or have to disconnect the battery cables for whatever reason, it'll go through a recalibration process. This is just a way to force it into the recalibration without having to disconnect the battery. Okay, I'm pretty sure that was more than 10 seconds, so I'm going to pop that fuse back in and go back to the driver's seat. Okay, back in the driver's seat. Now what you want to do, take your key, turn the ignition on, and just leave it. And what that's going to do, anytime the power is disconnected from the HVAC system, it's going to enter recalibration mode, which it's doing right now. You can see that, you can hear the blower has defaulted to max. And the AC system is going to cycle all of the actuators and set in its memory where it needs to put them. That clicking, that's the mode actuator, because it's trying to cycle it right now. Now we need to leave this sit for about a minute and a half. Now a lot of times what happens is people will get a battery changed, or the battery gets disconnected for whatever reason, and then they get back in the car and they don't let it finish recalibrating. Now if you push any of these buttons at all while it's in recalibration mode, it'll fail the calibration and then stuff just won't work right. So we're just going to leave it sitting for about a minute and a half and let it do its thing. Well, it's had plenty of time to do its thing. So if we hit the mode button though, you can hear there's the actuator clicking away again. Like I said, a recalibration is not going to magically fix a broken actuator. Now if you have a vehicle where it just suddenly started having random HVAC issues, air is not coming out of the right spot, it's too warm or whatever. Especially if it just had a service done, sometimes the recalibration will fix it. I only did all that to show you how to do that if that's the case for your car, but this car needs a new actuator. Okay, we're on the driver's side floorboard now, and we need to remove this plastic panel to get access to the actuator. So again, doing this with one hand. I'm going to have to get two hands to disconnect all this. Okay, so I got that plastic piece out. I unscrewed this, moved it out of the way so you can see a little bit better. Now, this is a little air duct that was also up there, just held in with a push pin. So I moved that as well so you can get enough space to see. Now, there are three actuators over here that control various functions of the HVAC system. Alright, first one is right here. It's this little thing right there. I'm not concerned about that one for this vehicle because that one's working fine. Now up here, you can see there's two more. Now the one at the back is the one that I'm actually going to be replacing. Now I know that that's the one I need to replace because I pushed the mode button while it was on and felt the actuator and I could feel it clicking, so I know that's the right one. But I'm going to have to get up in there with a really small socket and then unbolt that from the side there. It's a tight fit, but the right tools can make all the difference. Okay, I got the actuator out now. Here it is. Not very big. So this is basically, I want to talk about this and how it works for a second here. This is basically just a little motor and some gears in here that move this shaft, and then that shaft is connected to your a flap inside the HVAC housing, and that controls where your air goes. Now, it also has a sensor attached to this output shaft, and that provides feedback to the blower control module. That way it knows where exactly this actuator is currently at. Now, there's a number of ways these can fail. You can get stripped out gears in here, the motor can go bad, or your sensor can go bad. And if your sensor goes bad, what happens is the motor spins, but the computer is not getting a signal from it, so it doesn't know where exactly the vent flap is, and so it just keeps turning and turning and turning, and then it strips out the gears, and then you end up with a bad actuator. So got the new actuator here. Well, that was annoying. The memory card went full right as I was in the middle of something. Anyway, this is the new actuator. It's a Dorman unit. I'll post the part number up in the description. It's exactly the same. The only difference is, oh, it's upside down. Now they're both the same way up. They're exactly the same. This one just has this little arm attached to it. It looks like it's just a press fit. I guess it's meant for multiple vehicles. So I'll just pull that out and then I can swap it right out. Just pried this loose with a little pair of pliers, and now you can see they are the same. Now, you notice there's these flat spots in the shaft, and that has to fit in with the vent flap in a certain way. They have to match up. Now, you can't really move the actuator, you might break it, so you're going to have to move the shaft of the vent flap to get it close and then pop it in. But other than that, this pretty much just bolts right in with no trouble. The new actuator comes preset to the center of its range, so I just reach up there. I don't know if you can see that. I need a better light. But I just reached up there and grabbed the shaft that's left there and just put it at about the center of its range of motion. So I'll just pop this on first and then rotate it till the mounting bolts match up. Let's see if you can get a view of it while I do this. Okay, so I had to put the camera down. I couldn't really see what I was doing and tape at the same time. But basically I just lined up those flat spots with the ones on the shaft for the vent flap, and then slid the actuator on. Now I just need to bolt it down, plug it in, and put all the other stuff back together. These bolts are threaded into plastic, so they do not need to be very tight at all. Okay, actuator is installed. Now I'll just put all this other miscellaneous stuff back together. I'm not going to tape that because it's boring. Okay, everything's all back together now. But before you go ahead and turn the car back on, you have to disconnect that fuse so that it goes back into recalibration mode. Now anytime you replace a component of the HVAC system like this, you want to recalibrate it. Otherwise you can damage the new actuator. So I'm going to go ahead and go do that, and then we'll go ahead and turn it on and see if it works. Again, Hvac B Fuse. 10 seconds. Now I'll put the covers back on. Alright, time to see if it works now. Again, we're going to leave it alone for about a minute and a half and let it recalibrate. Well, I got all my tools back out here again. I ran into a bit of a problem. Now, you can get back up here so you can see this again. As I mentioned before, there are two actuators up here. Now, I did a lot of reading beforehand, and everything said that this actuator is the mode door actuator, which it is. But when I took it apart, I thought that the clicking actuator was the one that had failed, and this one was the one that was clicking. So I replaced this actuator. Well, it turns out both of these actuators had failed. Now this one had failed silently, so it wasn't making any noise, it just wasn't doing anything. And that's why you couldn't select where the air was supposed to go. This one, I believe this controls the defrost function in some form. Now this one was moving and working to an extent, but the gears were stripped out, so it was clicking. So both of these have failed in their own way. It's just that this one was the only one that was showing symptoms without having everything apart and being able to hear that this one was clicking. Now, the owner, I told him that this new actuator was going to fix this, and he didn't really want to spend any more money on two actuators. So what I did is I pulled the actuator back out of here, and I put it over here. I put that little gear crank mechanism back on it, put it in the correct spot, which is right here. Now the defrost door actuator was functioning properly, everything worked, but it was clicking because the gears were broken and cracked and stripping out inside of it. So what I did is I took the old blend door, the old mode door actuator. This is actually the old case for the mode door, and all the internal gears and everything were fine, it just didn't work. It wasn't being powered for some reason. So what I did is I took all the cracked and stripped gears, these are actually the old gears from the defrost door. You can see there's a tooth missing there. And this gear right here actually has a crack in the side of it. So I took those out and I swapped the good gears from the mode door actuator into the defrost door actuator, put it all back together and put it in. And then I redid the calibration. So now when you turn it on, everything works the way it should. We can select a different mode and it blows out the vents like it's supposed to now. So that was a big headache, but it's done and it works. See you guys next time.